Hey everyone, my name is Colin. I'm one of the roasters here at Metric, and today I am going to show you a recipe to brew this wonderful coffee that we have released, a Geisha from the famed Elida Estate in Boquete, Panama. This coffee is really special. I'll tell you more about it as I brew it, but we're going to get it ground up first. So I'm using the Fellow Ode grinder today. Grind setting is we're going to go 1 notch finer than 3. And a little trick, a lot of these grinders, if you're grinding your coffee at home, I'm sure you notice there's a lot of static. And in order to decrease the static, we have this little spray bottle. It's just some water in there. I'm just gonna give it one little mist, shake it around, and that really decreases the static, all the chaff flying up all over your counter. So we'll do that now. Shake it around just to make it an even spray. We'll drop it in. So this is our first year buying coffee from the Elida Estate and the Lamastus family. They've been farming coffee in that northern Boquete region of Panama for probably about 100 years now. This particular coffee, Geisha, in this region, it started to really become a special, popular, next level coffee experience. And it's really grown to crazy heights. I mean, this same estate sold a coffee this past year for about $1,500 a pound. This one isn't that expensive, but it's an investment. It's a really nice coffee. So let's go ahead and get the filter rinsed, and then I'll tell you more about it as I brew. Give the filter just a little fold along the seam there. Then I open it up, give it a fold the other direction. And it'll pop in there all nice. I've got my water heated up to 205 degrees for this brew, just below boiling. I'm just gonna give everything a nice preheat. So today I'm going to use 20 grams of coffee. And the brew is going to be pretty simple. I'll tell you about it before I start, and I'll talk about it while I'm doing it too. So it's going to be 20 grams of coffee. We're going to bloom the coffee with 40 grams of water. And then we're going to do 3 more pours after that. First pour will be 150 grams. Second pour will be up to 250 grams. And then the final pour, we'll finish it off at 300 grams. All right, before I get started, I dump the coffee in, and I'm just gonna shake the bed to flatten it. We wanna get a really even saturation on this bloom. All right, so I'm gonna start the timer and pour the first 40 grams of water over these grounds. And as soon as I pour the water, I'm gonna give it an additional swirl. Pick up the whole device and just swirl it in a circular motion. This helps to further saturate the coffee, make sure we're going to have fully even extraction. If you've got little pockets of dry grounds further down below the surface, that can cause some bubbling, and it doesn't allow all the water to flow through evenly. So we are about to start our first pour after the bloom. Right now, I'm about to hit 45 seconds. So now I'm going to pour up to 150 grams. So this coffee is processed using a method that the Elida Estate calls the Anaerobic Slow Dry process. So what they do for this is the anaerobic part is a fermentation that happens immediately after the cherries are picked. So they take the fresh harvested cherries, they put them into a sealed tank, and they ferment them for 120 hours. After that 120-hour fermentation, they put them on to raised beds, and they do a very slow dry. We're at 1 minute and 45 seconds now. I'm going to do my second pour up to 250 grams. We're pouring slow, steady, consistent. You don't want to pour too aggressively. That'll channel water straight through the bed without pulling out enough flavor from the coffee. There we go, we're up to 250 grams. And so for this slow dry, they're going to go into a kind of like a greenhouse to dry. They control the environment. A standard drying time for anaerobics or naturals would be 10 to 14 days. This one goes for 5 weeks. And that slow, steady dry is going to allow all the sugars to remain in the coffee, preserves a lot of the flavor, and just allows for a lot of complexity in the final cup. So we're hitting 3 minutes now, and I'm going to add that final 50 grams for a total brew volume of 300 grams. We want our total brew time here to be anywhere from 3 minutes and 30 seconds to about 4 minutes. There's a little bit of play in that time. You could go a little bit above 4 minutes. I don't like to push it too far beyond that. So if you find your brews going into the 4.5 minute range, might be good to go ahead and go a little bit coarser. If it happens in 2.5 minutes, better make your grind a little bit finer. So I have this one thing right at the end of the brew. I always like to give one more little swirl. And it just allows the coffee to settle evenly at the bottom of the filter, right as that water finishes draining out. So for those of you that do not know, this particular variety of coffee, Geisha, it is from an area of Ethiopia called Geisha. It was sort of a separate group of genetics than the majority of the coffee that was being produced all around the world for the first 100 years of coffee cultivation. So in the 1940s, this variety was brought to Central America, right around Costa Rica and Panama, and nobody really saw a whole lot of utility for it. At the time, they weren't looking for the same qualities in coffee that they are today, and Geisha as a variety is not super productive. However, like I said, about 20 years ago, a Panamanian farmer had grown some as an experiment and entered it into a competition. And it was almost disqualified that year because people thought it was artificially flavored because it tasted so different than everything else that was coming out of that region. And since then, there's just been a craze. People really love the flavor of this coffee. I love the flavor of this coffee. It's very unique. So we finished that brew right about 4 minutes there. And with a coffee like this, you really gotta set aside some time for yourself. This isn't something that you brew first thing in the morning and just, get it to wake yourself up and get going. And you want to have a special occasion, have some time to sit down and enjoy it. So the first thing I always like to do is with a decanter like this, it captures the aromatics really well. So I'm going to go ahead and see what's going on here. Yeah, so right off the bat, you're going to smell a lot of fruit. It's the fruit that you get from that anaerobic fermentation, from that extended period of time where the seeds are in contact with all of the fruit and the sugars in the coffee. It smells clean though. It doesn't smell like boozy or fermenty, which that can only happen if they're really controlling the environment in which the coffee is fermented in. It smells like tropical. I'm getting some floral notes, thinking maybe jasmine, honeysuckle. Smelling, as far as the tropical goes, it makes me think of guava, mango. Complexity is the first thing that comes to mind when you taste this. It's pretty warm right now, so it won't even be as open with the flavors as it will be in another couple minutes. But yeah, right off the bat, I taste... it's sort of what we look for with qualities in coffee is I could name 7 different fruits that I'm tasting right now, but I can taste the individual fruits. It doesn't taste like a fruit cocktail where everything's just kind of mushed together. Part of it tastes like Concord grapes. I get some blueberry, but then there's also this other side of it that's got a tropical note, and then the florals are coming around. It's got citrus, kind of like a grapefruit, a little bit of lime. For me, I've been fortunate enough to taste a lot of the fruit from the geisha trees, and it's kind of unmistakable if you're walking through a farm that's growing different varieties of coffee and you're tasting the cherries off other coffees that come out to be really, really nice. If you get to the geisha tree and you taste the fruit, it is just so much more sweet, and it tastes more like like a fruit that you would want to eat than the coffee fruit does of any other variety. Yeah, as it cools down more, you're going to get more of the citrus side. So warm, it was more on the Concord grape and some of the kind of, I'm thinking like caramelized pineapple or dried mango when it's warm. And then I'm getting more grapefruit, lime, still that Concord grape note, and the floral starts to come out more as it cools. It's a whole experience. And like I say, with a coffee like this, once you invest in it, it's worth taking the time to sit down and enjoy it. Reach out if you have more questions. I really hope that you enjoy this coffee. And yeah, cheers.